It is a 2020 Chevy Camaro LT1.
And I see the COVID-20 plate.
Yes.
So this was what you did on your year in hibernation?
Well, the car was bought in October of 19. It was a special order car. Guy backed out. I was actually at the dealership looking at an SS. SS was an automatic. I wanted a 6-speed. Seen the car, test drove it, loved it, fell in love with it. COVID-20 kind of came along mid-summer of 19 after we were already in the thick of it.
Of 20.
Yeah, correct,
yeah.
Of 20. The car has been through a lot. 3,000 miles. It was shipped off to Kansas. To Pro Charger, it was a beta test. For the new body style, they put a Pro Charger on the car. Car made 550 wheel. Came back, that wasn't enough for me. Had Steel City Performance, put a set of 1 7/8 headers on it, meth injection, we upgraded the fuel. We went to LT4 fuel components. Car made 652 wheel horsepower and like 570 foot-pounds of torque. All before the car had 9,000 miles on it. I ripped it all back down to stock. We had plans on selling the car. The wife and I wanted to have another kid. For personal reasons, we ended up not having a kid, so I kept the car. Gotcha. At that point, it was time to not keep it stock anymore. And it was right around July. The car had about 12,000 miles on it at the time. We went full bolt-on. It's got full name brand on this. It's got 2-inch American Racing headers, Catless xpipe. It's back to actually a factory muffler. It still has a factory MPP muffler. That's going to change soon. The car was on ZL1 replica wheels. It now is on Forgestar wheels.
Yeah, and you just got those.
Just put those on.
Now, is that same stock size, or did you get a different size than stock?
No, that's different. So it's 20 by 10.5 in the rear.
Yeah.
On a 305/35 20, and on the front she is 20 by 9.5 with a 275/35. The car is lowered on GM Performance 1LE spec suspension lowering kit. It has an MSD intake manifold. A Mighty Mouse catch can's been on it since it had 3,000 miles on it.
One of the only things you didn't tear down when you
was the catch can. Correct. We put a monster triple disc clutch in the car that can handle 1,100 foot-pounds of torque and 1,100 wheel horsepower.
Yeah.
Because when it was Pro Charged, we did start to have clutch slippage. It has a Rotofab cold air intake. Steel City Performance put a one-piece driveshaft shop, 3.5-inch aluminum one-piece driveshaft in. It has 4.5-inch custom tips on the rear end of the car. As of yesterday afternoon, we put Skeptic Innovations and Steve Mullins put fully custom taillights in the car. It has LED blacked out corner lights that I had replaced because they were defective. Steve Mullins put those back in as well at Skeptic Innovations. The car makes 490. Last time it was on a dyno before we did the one-piece drive shaft and the lighter wheels, because the Forgestar wheels are lighter. It made 492 wheel horsepower and 481 foot-pounds of torque.
Why this car? Why'd you start with a Camaro? Have you always been a Chevy guy, a Camaro guy, or is just one that struck you?
I had a 2010 Camaro SS, and I lost it to a deer. It got total loss. And
that's an interesting way of putting it. I lost it to a damn deer.
Yes. PA is way too abundant.
Carjacked by a deer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I made it a point in life that I would own another one of these. And when they came out with the 6th gen platform, it's called the Alpha platform. Chevy and GM, they actually brought the Camaro back to the U.S. It is built and assembled in the U.S. now in Michigan. I decided that I wanted a 6th gen Camaro. I actually had went out and test drove a Mustang. I test drove a Challenger. I wouldn't test drive a Charger because they didn't come in 6 speeds. No matter what I did, I wanted a standard. When I test drove them all, out of all of them, this car handles like it's on rails.
Is that what did it for you?
That's what did it for me. And the torque behind this car is ridiculous.
Well balanced then.
Well, it's got a monstrous amount of torque, especially now that it's been tuned. Rob Katz out of RK Tuning helped remote tune with Steel City Performance. They dialed this car in. No hiccups. It is on E85, and it handles like an absolute monster.
Almost everything that's out there now has all kinds of driver assists and things like that to it. Is this kind of devoid of that stuff?
It has all the nannies, but you can shut them all off. If you press and hold the traction control button at first, it will just turn the traction control off. But if you continue to hold it, it'll actually turn the electronic stability control off as well.
So you're really driving the car.
Correct.
And that's
how I normally drive it. It normally does not have any of those nannies on. I mean, unless I'm in the rain. If I'm in the rain, because this car is daily driven, it currently now has over 21,000 miles on it.
And you drive it all year too, right?
Drive it all year round. I drove it in the winter. I drive it in the rain. I bought the car to drive it. I didn't buy it to sit it in the garage. I know a lot of my friends, they get on me and harp on me because, PA weather, PA salt. I bought the car to drive it. I didn't buy for it to sit at it and look at it. I bought it to drive it, and that's exactly what I do.
exhaust or just?
Yes, that's a factory quad NPP exhaust.
Gotcha.
I can actually still quiet the car up. It is still factory NPP. We are going to a MBRP full catback. We'll have to modify it because, like I said, I have a ARH long tube headers and a Catless xpipe. So we'll have to modify the headers to fit because the full catback we won't need the whole system. So we'll have to make it work. The whole plan with the car was not to make it stand out, not to go overboard with the aesthetics, just make it a car that when it gets up on you, you don't know it's coming, other than hearing it. And you don't know what's done to it. You could think that that's just an exhaust. But I'll tell you what, man, a lot of people sleep on this car. I've taken out Hellcats, taken out Mustang GTs. I don't toot my own horn. I kind of just sit back, but the car punches way outside of its weight class because of the torque that the car has.
Is this a forever car? Or do you think this is...
I'm going to drive the wheels off this car, and when they fall off, I'm going to put them back on and give it to my daughter. Yeah, COVID-20 is not going anywhere.
That's really cool.
She's here to stay.
Did you have a definitive plan when you started, or are you just like, let's see where this leads me?
That's a loaded question. I had plans on doing a huge build of this car when I first got it. Did I know what direction? NA, nitrous, turbo, ProCharge? No. But then I started looking at ProCharger's kits and when I first got the car. And I had actually called them because they didn't have a 2020 listing. And that's when they asked me if I'd be willing to be a beta test for them. At which point I said, yes, I'd be dumb not to. The system is gone. I sold it. Like I said, we planned on selling the whole car, so I took it back to stock. I was going to sell it to the dealership. But like I said, I didn't skimp out on going back when I went back to a full NA build. The car had LT4 fuel components on it when it was ProCharged. Okay. We kept those. We kept the triple disc monster clutch. The catch can's been on the car the whole time and didn't come off at all, even when it was stock. We went to a DSX E85 fuel sensor. It's got a Katech 95 millimeter throttle body. The Rotofab cooled air intake, as you can see, which actually does seal up against the hood and pulls air not only from the fender but also pulls it from my hood.
Almost like a sealed box.
Correct. That's actually what it's supposed to do.
I know you mentioned that it handles great, and I know you mentioned you lowered it. Is it just lowering springs?
No, it's springs. The front struts has control. It comes with control arms and 1LE sway bars. So they're a much thicker sway bar. It reduces the body roll by about, I think it said 30%. And that's a GM performance setup. Actually, the manufacturers have come a long way. They started noticing that with these higher performance vehicles that people are going to buy the aftermarket parts one way or the other. So why not manufacture it yourself and it be engineered for the car? The car, like I said, is a daily driver. I could have went with a full-on coilover setup, but the car is not a dedicated track car, nor is it a dedicated quarter-mile car. So that's why I went with the GM performance setup. It lowers the car about 3/4 of an inch, so it's not horrible. I did notice it rides a little rougher, but that's to be expected with any lowering kit whatsoever. You sacrifice a little bit of comfort. I'll tell you what, I'd drive it to Las Vegas right now. It's extremely comfortable to ride in for long periods at a time.
And quiet?
Yeah, when you hit 6th gear and you're just cruising with the NPP setup, you can't hear the car. I have to downshift for you to be able to hear it, even with the headers.
That's amazing. What are we forgetting? What haven't we talked about?
Tires. This car has had multiple different brands on the car. I've gone as far as spending a ridiculous amount of money on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's. I had 315s in the rear at one point in this car. It was actually a wider tire, but it was a 30 series with Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's. The car handled like crap. Tires lasted me about 8,000 miles. Couldn't grab any traction between first and second gear. The car was just spinning. It didn't matter whether it was 70 degrees, 50 degrees, 80 degrees. It didn't matter what the temperature, what my air pressures was. We went from 35 to 32. We tried 28 because some people said lower the pressure to grab more traction. So I got rid of them. At 8,000 miles, they were done. Steel City Performance we were talking about different tires we could put on the car, and we came across these Continental Extreme Contact Sports. It's actually the second set of them on the car. I was running DWS 06s in the winter, and I loved the traction that those had, even with the power that the car had. So we tried out the Extreme Contact Sports, and I'll tell you what, man, it's night and day. The car just sticks to the ground. A lot of people criticize me, tell me Pilot Sport 4S's are the best. My car does not like them. The only person that's ever touched my car has only really been two, without the exception of Steve Mullins at Skeptic Innovations, doing the audio and the taillights. Justin Pons out of Pons Auto Service. I'm the sales manager for Pons Auto Sales, as you can see on my back window. And then Steel City Performance. They're the only two that really put their hands on my car.